controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a science here to make things make sense.
Whew, it's getting hot and heavy in here.
Okay, let's try and...
For those who don't... try and do what?
Oh, I was going to make the noise. We don't need
of
to do
douching?
that. Like...
Oh, please. What? Okay. Obviously...
Whoops! Edit that out, me. I'm kidding.
I'm just like... Anytime we step into like sex or sex health, not to make it serious, but obviously I want to acknowledge that like we want to have fun and talk about this, but obviously these are like things that are important and we don't want to like, I just want to be careful never to like shame anyone for anything.
Oh, well, we don't need to shame. I douche. You douche. We all douche.
Yeah, but okay. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm just like, I know we want to have
like
fun
the right
and
thing
be
to do.
lighthearted.
Like, every sex show is like, here, like they're very serious.
Yes.
And then
so we're going to be
actually
serious,
are never
but we're also
funny.
going to have fun. And so if we're playing around, let's hopefully not offend anyone, but like this will be educational.
I hope we don't offend anyone.
No, I don't
never
think we
thought
will
about
with
that.
this.
And now I'm like, oh god. Oh god.
No,
We're
okay.
talking about
So
water in holes.
douching is obviously, we're going to both talk about vaginal douching and anal douching, but I was going to say it's obviously very prevalent in the queer community.
MSM is what the acronym is in science journals. Men who have sex with men.
Oh yeah, but that's been an acronym for a long time for male seeking male.
Oh.
But MSM...
But not in academic, they don't mean that.
No, I know. I know, but I'm just saying like everyone knows that. Because
wait, what's MSM, male seeking male? I don't know
seeking man. It's like, well, like if you used to go on like Craigslist personal whatever page.
Whoa, Mitch is
Or-
coming in strong.
Before Grindr and stuff, this is how people would know.
MSM.
You go to a section that was
I
like
know.
devoted to.
Yeah, I know. I
You weren't an internet kid. You don't get
I know.
it.
I'm an internet slut. Okay, but in scientific journals, they always do brackets MSM, and it's males who have sex with males.
Okay. Yes.
Which I always is just like, it just seems so devoid of all the joy that comes with that act. But also, they need to study douching more because all the answers I wanted, I could not find.
Like what? Why don't we talk about what were you wanting to know mostly?
I always wonder to thine self, whilst douching, this can't be good for my colon. Like, this has
Right.
to be something that, like, is irritating. Like, are there not bacteria there that are like, no, oh my God, like the biggest flood of our lives. Now we're like, am I not disrupting my digestion in a way that's going
Right.
to lead to what I would say is like colon cancer? Like, that's my main concern. Nothing on that.
I think I found a little bit. I would say
Oh.
I didn't find any like hard studies, but
Oh,
I
tell me.
found recommendations from doctors in terms of what they think you should do. But I kind of wanted to like bury that lead a little bit.
Well, can you
But
just tell
I will
me-
say, like, the part of me is like, if you're worried about anal douching, shouldn't you be worried about a penis up there?
Okay.
Isn't that like a fair, like-
This is leading to this thing I've been thinking about recently, which is that is being gay bad?
And that's what today's episode is
now I'm
actually
like, wow,
about.
the penis is also quite the irritant in the hole, isn't it? Isn't it? And then there's
Potentially
lube.
a much bigger one, yeah.
And then the lube, I haven't read the small print on those packages.
Yeah, who knows? And it's like your anal lining is even thinner than like so many things. It's like like
What?
well, like people can absorb
Mine's
things up their
thick.
butt so easily. No, on the inside, once you get in, it's like
yeah,
really
that's
thin.
true.
And people get like coffee enemas.
Oh yeah,
Remember, like,
butt
people-
chugging alcohol.
Yeah, it's like dangerous because you actually
reabsorb so well.
absorb
Oh,
like a
God.
lot of things through there into your
Wait,
bloodstream.
can you just tell me the cancer thing?
Well, okay. Why don't I talk a little bit? Like,
Or
what do you
just
mean
go
the
in your
cancer
order,
thing?
but I'm like, I need to know that.
Okay, the answer was, okay, fine, I'm not bearing the lead. The answer was that anal douching is actually, like, can be a little dangerous.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that, like, you can't do it safely. But a lot of doctors are like, you probably don't need to do this, first of all, because that's not where your poop is. Like, most people are doing it to feel clean, right? And most people are doing it to, like, get... If you're gonna have anal sex, have to not worry about poop at all.
That's why I do it, because then I
And
feel
same with
good.
people with vaginas are like doing it so that they can feel clean. And there's this idea that it might help get like menstrual blood out, or that it might help with other things and like might help with the smell. Because a lot of vaginal douches have like fragrance or antiseptic in them to actually like quote unquote clean it out.
Wow.
But specifically with anal douching, it's like the risk of tearing can be quite high. So it depends how harsh you're pushing something in there, especially if you're not using lube. It depends how hard you're pushing water in there. Like really, there's only a couple inches of space that is before where your like poop stops. So like enema, for example, goes into your large intestine, but a douche isn't aiming to do that.
Oh God, now I'm like, am I giving myself enemas?
Like, are you,
Because I'm
how
like,
far are you sticking it up
I don't
there?
know, but I am not a cautious person at all. So you can only
Does
imagine
it
how my
hurt
douching
you?
is. No, it feels good. You know, I'm gay. I like things up there.
Okay, the medical professionals in general, and this is just from articles, it's not from research papers.
Yeah, this is
It
from
was just,
brave
like,
doctors who came forward with their
and
douche
spoke out.
information.
And doctors in the queer community, gay community specifically.
There's
Obviously.
not gay doctors.
No, I know. Just the ones that look over us
don't
and-
exist.
Ultimately, their recommendations are like, you should just gently wash yourself in the shower. You don't need to be sticking stuff up there, especially if it's not water. That most people have a fear of feces, but they were like 8 out of 10 people, especially if you have a good diet, like a healthy diet with fiber, it won't be a big issue. And like the doctors would be like, just put a sheet down if you're worried.
Put a sheet down and hit the shreddies, folks. That is much smarter.
And don't squeeze too much water up there if you're gonna douche.
Okay, the videos that the studies
Like hoses.
Well, the studies I read, there was about like 5 of them. They're all very similar in theme. I'll get to them, but they talk about these videos and they say they advise 2 to 3 doses of liquid retaining in the anal or vaginal hole for 10 to 30 seconds.
Oh.
I was like, what? People hold it in there and what? Like do a little dance, shimmy around, and then.
What do you do? I mean, this is very graphic, actually.
I do.
You dance around?
A little dance, just not 10 to 30 seconds. What do you do?
I rarely do it, but because I'm worried it's like bad for me. But then it's definitely not 10 to 30 seconds.
Wow, I literally do
Immediately
it,
like, oh, it needs to come out.
I like literally, because I'm used to it, do it sometimes when I have like bad gas to try and like stop myself before like a dinner.
Wait, what? You douche to stop your gas?
I will, if I have really bad farts, douche to stop my gas. I don't really
does that
know if it
mean?
works. Like I'm just feeling like there's stuff up there that's making me smell really bad, and then I douche it out, and then I get to go out for dinner and be less worried about the smell.
You know this lives on the internet forever.
Does anyone else douche if they are farting too much? Reach out in the comments below. Am I
Oh, Greg.
canceled?
I don't think you're canceled. You've just shared lots with the audience.
Okay, well, I did.
But this is
douche
okay.
too.
This is an example of something that I'm like, we're laughing, but I also want to be serious because everyone's curious.
Maybe
and everyone
someone
could have
does
that
that.
experience.
Maybe someone else does
someone.
that with really bad gas. And if they don't, maybe they could try it. Okay, next topic, please.
Okay, well, something interesting I learned about anal douching is that it was invented, specifically enemas were invented for people with constipation.
Now we're getting back to me. It's
little-
people
well,
are trying to fix other
that's-
ailments, not just sex.
Yeah, I think it was in mind of like, because the enema goes up into your large intestine, into your sigmoid colon, I think it's called, which is where like your poop can be stuck, or not stuck, but if you are constipated, stuck. And so the force of water in an enema goes
That's
past the
smart.
rectum. This is why doctors are like, when you're douching, you're not trying to clean out your like colon and your large intestine. You're just trying to like get the rectum, which is not that big, but an enema goes past that and like tries to wash out the rest.
So that's it was invented for constipation.
Yes, and sometimes like I saw like a doctor talking about, people ask, well, then how come when I douche stuff comes out? Like, isn't that proof?
Yeah, doctor.
Their take was you're actually disturbing stuff up there and it's making it come out. Like you're wish-washing it up in the parts that like if you're gonna penetrate that part, you probably wouldn't disturb.
That's why I'm thinking I'm giving myself enemas by mistake. I really do think that.
You gotta be careful. I think just do it gently, do it nicely.
I've never done anything gently or nicely in my life.
That's true. But I'm thinking of like, obviously there's lots of people who mentally want to feel clean before they're having sex.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I am versatile. For anyone out there wondering, it means I am a top and a bottom. I actually love both equally. But I do not think I don't enjoy bottoming unless I feel like I can't mentally enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think that's
because I'm
fairly
constantly
common. You don't want to worry about it. Yeah, and especially like if it's not a pleasant feeling to feel like you're the one who could like quote unquote ruin the atmosphere if you weren't clean enough. But I think that is a little bit of body shaming and sex shaming, and like not from you. I just mean like it's totally natural. It's one of those things where it's like It's probably not that likely unless you really have to go to the bathroom or you're like having a bad diet and you've been eating out a lot or something.
Yeah. Although you always say that like you have like
Don't say this.
Okay.
No, don't say that.
Let's just say Mitch feels healthier when he eats worse.
That's not true. I used to say that.
To say that.
I think
you'd be like, the only way I feel healthy is if I eat chips for dinner.
No,
you'd eat healthy and be like, oh God, my stomach.
I think, okay, let me try and describe it. Okay?
I don't know.
When we were younger, like I definitely grew up not always eating unhealthy, but like, so we'd eat like healthy dinners and stuff. But I grew up on like Pop-Tarts and sugar cereal and
dream
and
life.
Like what do you call those, Hot Pockets and stuff.
Like you literally dream. Like
So-
the YTV commercial of a family you got to live.
So I just noticed when I was trying to get healthier as I got older, I think it was just the idea of drastically changing my diet. I think anyone who does that, if you're coming from a diet that's primarily like high salt, high fat, high whatever, anything, and then you switch it to all
Salt,
these
fat,
different foods,
acid, heat.
it's like my gut wasn't as used to taking so much fiber or vegetables and
But
stuff.
it was used to taking something else, am I right? Hey, his gut can take
So
a dip.
I would
Okay.
notice if I tried to change my diet too much and be healthy, I would be like, it actually upsets my stomach. I don't feel as good. But I think over time I've slowly transitioned to being healthier now because as you age, eating that stuff also
Yeah.
impacts you pretty heavily.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't really have a choice here.
Fine, there was a transition period where Mitch always felt sick when he ate healthy, and it was really funny.
And Greg has brought it up for the last 10 years. Like anytime I'm like not feeling well, he's like, you must have eaten healthy. I guess you didn't eat your chips. And I'm like, okay, it's not true anymore.
Oh my God. Okay. No, I'm like, I don't need to get more personal. But I was just thinking, like, I think because of like being, I'm just gonna be personal. I love how I thought I was gonna like not say it, and then I'm just like, I'm gonna say it. Being versatile is annoying because now I douche more, but then it's like I don't even necessarily need to because I end up being the top. Whereas if you just make a decision and you are one,
true. You know what to do, like what's expected.
and I
of
just
you.
feel like my vibe, like it's just like a thing that's happened. Like I just I've been giving off more top energy lately, and I'm like, but I am clean. I did sacrifice me whole for this situation. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting that you kind of like it is smart in gay sex to just make a decision early on before you do it, and then because there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah, that's true. And it is like one of those things that
Like, I could,
it's
like-
not like impossible to do off the cuff, but obviously it's harder. Like people want to feel
Yeah.
prepared and people want to feel like there's jokes about a lot of like gay men not eating for like 12 hours before they have
Which
to have
I've
sex.
never thought like, hey, I'm never not
Well, I
eating,
think it's
but-
like you don't want, like a lot of people don't want to feel bloated. It's not even necessarily the worry about feces. It's like feeling in your stomach that you're full of food isn't
Yeah.
necessarily a great feeling when you.
That's interesting though. Like I wonder if they actually are like, oh well, then 12 to 24 hours later, like I don't have to douche.
Maybe, yeah. And I think
me empty.
there are pills and foods specifically geared towards gay men or people who like want to have anal sex.
Oh,
because-
we have some of that. What is it called?
Well, no, Metamucil
Oh.
is one, but that's not specifically targeted towards gay
But
men.
I once made a TikTok where I just held it up to you and wrote "Who's the bottom?" and like everyone was like, "He's a bottom," so like they knew.
Yeah, but Metamucil is more broadly for even like elderly people and stuff. Like it's not just for gay people. It's like just getting extra fiber in your diet, which is promoted to anyone. But
Metamucil.
yeah, but there are pills that like I can't think of the names now that are
we have
kind of
gay
like
friends.
targeted
Yeah,
to you
they're
to
called,
be like
they're called like "clean you out, boys" or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And you
Oh
take
my
it
god,
every
I'm not gonna name names, but our friends have them. What are they called? They're like
can't remember.
clean as a whistle.
it's probably called like the bullet.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I know gay people are so simple.
But let's okay, you want to go?
Gay people are also, as we said earlier, bad. I'm kidding.
No.
Okay, no. So this was my issue with all of these studies. So there are many academic studies about how douching they think leads to an increase in STI transmission. Their theories are because you are disrupting the walls of
lining,
your
yeah.
hole, and therefore if you have unprotected sex, it's going to be easier for bacteria and different infections to occur. Okay, so that this is the main takeaway, but this is like something that was annoying me as I was reading these articles. So like, douching is more common amongst people who report substance abuse, STIs, or being HIV infected. Is kind of like what they're taking away from a lot of these things, and then they're like, it's all these surveys of people who have douched recently, and then finding out, oh, they have hepatitis C, like, oh, they have this STI, oh, they have chlamydia, so therefore douching causes these things. But then I was like, but if you're just doing surveys, isn't it more likely that people who have douched recently are more sexually active?
Yeah.
So the likelihood of getting
In
any
the first
STI is
place.
increased. That like,
Yeah.
is it fair enough for you to say that douching is causing it? Because they are constantly surveying people, mostly men who have sex with men and women, but it was more rare. And then just inferring because those people who douched more
Had
higher rates of STIs that it might have caused it. Doesn't that
Yes.
seem flawed?
It is, and I actually came across a couple of these studies too. One was like 2021, and it was kind of implying that like those correlative rates. The other one was 2019, I think, and it found that this was more correlative, not causative. So they, in their study, they were like, these things are not related; they just happen to be correlated.
Yeah. So like people who douche more are probably more sexually active and then have more STIs. But I'm not trying to be like, oh, douching's good, but I was actually annoyed that I wasn't getting clear information about something that I assume is bad.
Well, this study was interesting because it was also talking about, I guess, like using douching as a form of STI or HIV prevention.
People doing it after?
Yeah.
I didn't even think that was a thing. And
Me either. It sounds like it's still like early days and it's not necessarily a common practice. I'm not sure.
This was a survey that said 13 to 48% of the men who have sex with men, which now that I'm saying out loud is a very wide range.
Yeah.
13 to 48%. I'm like, it's like, what?
That's really big.
That's like annoying numbers. But anyways, 13 to 48% of men will douche after they have anal sex.
I mean, I guess that makes sense if they're like, I want to clean it out, especially if you didn't use a condom.
Okay, so let's just stop there and say one thing. Use condoms. So this is the... okay, I'm doing a little bit of a side note, but in the gay community with PrEP, people are now having unprotected sex, but I'm like, hello, every other STI, not just HIV.
Yeah, I think about
I
that
kind
too.
of am frustrated by that. So like anytime people talk to me about having unprotected sex, I'm like, no,
I
never.
guess it's because people feel like most STIs are like treatable, right? And
But
like
doesn't it
HIV
seem like
is the one that most people in the gay community are scared of. But I agree, it is like
every STI
why-
leads to...
I mean, you have to let people be
infections.
autonomous in the first place, right? Like,
Yes.
it's the same as like what is it in Catholic school? You learn like where you're just not supposed to have sex. Like they don't teach you about condoms and
Abstinence.
stuff. Abstinence versus like protective gear.
I love how
And
you
they
went to Catholic school and you're like, what is that thing they taught
fucking
me?
blocked that.
Yeah.
But
She
they
blocked
realize like when you give people condoms, like when you give people contraceptive, it's way more effective than just telling them they're not allowed or you should abstain. And so I feel like not that this is the exact same thing, but it is like people should be given the choices, be given the education. If anything, education is more important because I do think a lot of gay men or queer people maybe are only fixated on HIV because of how scary its past was. Because I mean,
Yeah.
now like obviously people can live perfectly like productive lives and happy lives with HIV and manage it and be undetectable. But there's a lot of stigma around it. Whereas they get fixated on that because it's amazing that there's this thing called PrEP that they can use and not have to worry about it. And then they just kind of like forget about the other stuff.
Yeah, okay. So I guess that's more what I'm trying to say is like, I wish there was more talk about how unprotected sex can lead to other STIs. Or I wish that there was more education around that.
Yeah.
Because
just
it
a
does feel like a
reminder
lot of
that.
people
Yeah.
are like prep on prep. And it's like, well, I'm still not going to have unprotected
Yeah,
sex.
it's really only like one element of like, aren't you worried about getting other STIs? But
And people are really weird about condoms in a way that
well, that's because of porn. There's like I haven't enough for this. I didn't do research on it, but there's a lot of studies that show like the use of the prevalence of bareback porn is what has also like reflected back onto the community.
It's always porn. And know what else is porn? Instagram. And so is TikTok. You're not getting off easy, boys, just because you were literally porn. But that's interesting. And that's annoying.
I think
and
some governments have implemented laws that porn in certain countries have to show condoms.
that is so sexy. What country is that?
I don't know. I just feel like I've heard that. Okay,
Probably
anecdotal.
Sweden. But I do actively want to start watching porn only if there's condoms.
Yeah, well, I think
Oh
it
my
becomes
God.
like that level of like wanting to push the boundary, and obviously sex can be hot when you're like pushing a boundary of like what's okay, right? Or like people like to play with pain and pleasure, and so I think that doing without a condom can, for some people, give that same rise of like there's a bigger risk here. And obviously when you're like having
my
sex, you're in a
God, yeah,
different
okay.
mindset. But I wanted to talk a little bit about vaginal douching because, I'm the expert. No, not at all. I'm like, obviously, I've just looked this up. And for the women out there, people who want to talk about this, like, feel free to correct. But around 20 to 40% of women between 15 to 45 douche, vaginal douche. This is in America. I said it earlier, but common reasons are for like unpleasant odors. I'm doing quote marks. Wash away menstrual blood. Avoid getting sexually transmitted diseases and prevent pregnancy after intercourse. These are reasons people claim. Not
Okay, I was like, doesn't that seem counterintuitive?
Yeah. So most research has found like none of these things to be true.
Okay.
And the problem is like a lot of vaginal douches that you would buy at like a pharmacy.
Yeah,
or
sometimes
whatever.
if you're looking for a douche, you can only get a vaginal one, and then you get home, you open it, you're like, well, this ain't gonna work on my asshole.
Yeah, I ain't gonna pay.
I didn't realize there was this whole other thing here.
Yeah, they kind of look like baby bottles.
And they have like they're the gorgeous, fresh smelling scent.
Well, that's the thing. They contain often vinegar in them or
Oh
antiseptic.
boy!
And you have to make sure you know what's in there because the problem is, like you were guessing with anal douching, it's like it actually does disrupt your bacteria. So a lot of studies have found that for the vagina, like douching is not good.
See, I want that on anal douches too. Scientists, where are you? If you're doing your master's, I want your PhD on this. Okay, Hans? Keep going.
So I will let you know. These are the things that may happen or the risks associated with vaginal douching. Women who stop douching, who already have in studies, are less likely to get bacterial vaginosis, which is like infections in their vagina.
They're less likely if they stop douching.
If they stop douching.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that same reason it upsets the natural balance of sort of like the bacteria that your body has. You're 73% higher risk of pelvic inflammatory disease if you douche. Douching more than once a week is correlated to difficulty getting pregnant and increases the risk of ectopic pregnancy by 76%, which is when the embryo implants outside of uterus.
Whoa.
And it's an increased risk of cervical cancer or like a weak correlation to it. There's not as many studies or evidence for that, but enough that most medical professionals, so it seems, would say like douching for women or for people with vaginas is not worth it.
It makes sense. There's more research on that because it's like we live in like a heteronormative world. It makes sense that there's more information about douching with vaginas rather than douching with your anus hole.
Yeah, and if you go to most, I'd say like
that's good
pharmacy places, like there are not always anal douches unless you're in a gay area.
Yeah.
Like it's funny to go to a Shoppers in the Village.
Oh, I sometimes
versus just like
I sometimes use like it's like an eye.
What? It's probably one of those. It's like to clean a camera. Like
it's like, oh yeah, it's like to clean a camera. Well, remember we were filming that
like
show
that.
and everyone I was like, oh,
Like,
whoa, you're holding a douche, and this like bro like camera guy was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's a douche. Like whatever you're blowing on your expensive lens that you can't stop talking about is a douche. Like it would work. Anyways, I have something like that. Okay, but I do think that's really valid information. I want that type of information for anal douching.
that was the anecdotal. Like for anal douching, that's what I came across from experts. I think they're like sort of extrapolating from the vaginal douche studies, but I think it is like you're likely up disrupting, especially if you're using not just water.
Okay, so this is something kind of interesting. 1 in 10 men for this one survey reported bleeding after rectal douching. Oh. So that's kind of like, I know, I thought I was not careful like that guy. But I think that's a really good point in that if there is bleeding from it, then you're obviously going to increase your chances of getting an STI
And
through
even just
transmission.
increased risks of infections
so it's like,
any
okay,
sort of issue.
that's like obviously like from like a physiological perspective, doing something before sex that involves blood is like not going to be good. But then also they were realizing that douching was so common in men. Actually, there was this one funny study where they
gay men.
Sorry, in gay men. And straight men, I don't know. And straight men, I don't know. It was like the way they asked the question was, it was like, how many times have you douched? And each time you put the water in 9-hole counted as one douche. So then the percentage went over 100% because all the gay men were like, oh, well, before I had sex, I actually put water in my hole like 6 times. And they were like, it is so common. It was above 100% because the way we asked, they were like, oh yeah, like 7 times a day or whatever. And so the study was like, if we can figure out how to create a substance that can be viral or some sort of antiviral HIV medication or some sort of topical
STI,
STI
you want to really
thing.
squirt like antibiotics up. No.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, but they were just saying this is a practice that gay men would be willing to do. So
I mean,
like they were
already-
like, it's
yeah.
another avenue of protection.
disease prevention.
If like right now people are mostly just using water, saline solution, or maybe like something that smells like a rose petal. If sadly you have to live in the world of like being a woman with beauty products, which is like a hell. They were like, maybe we could create some substance in the future that men would be willing to put into their ass before sex, which I thought was kind of interesting.
No,
They were
that is
like trying to be
interesting.
like, they were just trying to understand the behavior of
And it's
douching.
nice to know that there's research looking into that to kind of help the taboo of anal sex in the first place. Like that is amazing. If you can do disease prevention from that end as well, and not just like condoms, great.
But yeah,
Because people are gonna do it no matter what, both queer, straight, whatever.
yeah, the men, like, I don't know, these studies on these men, they really were trying to say that they do think it increases STI transmission, HIV transmission. I mean, the fact that you could be bleeding, those things make sense to me, but I really wasn't impressed with the studies. Like the way that they surveyed, they would write things like, we took into account all confounding variables, but they wouldn't explain why. And I was like, I just feel like there's a huge flaw here, because people who are douching more are having more sex. And I just think because they have an STI, you can't just say it was from the douching.
Yeah.
And I'm really like, there's a lack of research in anal, like rectal douching. And what I was curious about, which was like direct correlations to like inflammation of the colon, or inflammation leads to cancer. Like, so what kind of like biological processes are happening when water is going up there, or even a dick, I guess.
I would say my takeaway is like, obviously so many people are both I think it sounds like there's more clear-cut evidence for vaginal douching, but a lot of people are anal douching, and there isn't so much evidence about like major disruption. Obviously, you have some correlation between like disease transmission, but I think my takeaway is like people aren't gonna stop. I don't think unless there's hard evidence that it's actually gonna cause you like long-term problems. Hard cock evidence. And so if you're going to do it, it's just be careful. Don't be so aggressive with it. You just like know that there's only a small area that you're really trying to sort of like clean out, quote unquote.
I love that. Small area, a few inches.
Yeah, and take a little bit at a time.
You don't need a super soaker blast it. Like, what were they? Remember? Super soaker 3000. You don't need that.
And yeah, then do it. You'll feel good, and you just don't have to worry as much about, and have fiber, honestly. Have fiber. And you'll probably
But that's for the gays. For the
that's or women who are anal. That's for anal sex.
Anal sex, true. I'm gonna go back to my really flawed thing that I think every time I bring up, you're like, Greg, this is annoying, about why I think straight men are gay.
Okay.
Because it's like the pressure.
Here we go.
It's just like the pressure that men have toward this is made up, this is hyperbolic, this is just a vibe I'm feeling from society that I get told. That like men are like, oh, my girlfriend's little flower better smell like a rose, or whatever. That is so annoying. It's like a vagina is like, I'm gay and I'm like, a vagina is hot with the liquids there. The whole point is you're trying to get her wet. You're wanting there to be things there. Like, it's reminding me of this like gay vibe, or like my girlfriend's vagina has to be perfect.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Smell perfect. Be shaven for me to enjoy it. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound like you like vagina. Naturally, it sounds like you're gay and you're just making up excuses to not do it because you really want to do your buddy Chad. Anyways, I've had weird people talking like this is my theory.
I mean, like, okay, yeah, so that means straight men are gay. Okay. So,
Yeah, or it's like why
say,
are they like putting so much pressure on women to be like,
yeah, there's a
so
weird
perfect if they're
stigma
attracted to
around
them, it should be.
I will
you're
say
attracted
just the
to
other
them.
flip end of it is like,
Yeah.
don't bring a nasty, dirty penis near me, right? Like, there's one thing to say, like, I wouldn't mind a decent hygiene, and I'm sure it can go the same for straight couples. It goes both ways. You know what I mean? So
But
there's probably
really, you don't
degree.
like a stanky dick.
No, but I understand that sort of stigma around vaginas has been like way overblown.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I don't like a stanky dick, but I've never ever said that out loud. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never made it a part of any part of my attraction.
It's not
like,
part of your personality.
It's not, and it's like, and I just haven't had bad experiences. And if someone's truly was so Like, it just actually never happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
not that prevalent.
It's never
like, it's an
been-
individual problem if it is. It's
and
like,
even if it was, for example, I don't even know. There's a part of me that's like, if I'm turned on.
no, Greg,
Okay.
I've been in a bad situation before, and it's
Oh.
just like, yeah, nothing crazy, but it's like, obviously no one wants to have to deal with something.
But it breaks through the horniness.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
But
but
that's just general hygiene, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not having to, like, literally change your biology and, like, shove water up your
yeah. And I'm just, again, as I said before, it's a very flawed opinion. I just am sick of guys talking to me about girls in this way where I'm like, why aren't you just attracted to them the way that they are? Because they're hot. And I'm like, they're hot.
Weird.
It's so weird. And men are just so fragile. They're just such
lots
fragile
of men are,
people.
okay? So, like, we can't just, like, always just say, like, there's lots of guys who probably hear that and are like, no, I love when a girl smells like a girl, and when a girl, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and they're
getting closer.
Those guys are hot. Okay. I'm clearly just having like specific situations, like, obviously
thinking
keep
about.
thinking about.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah.
So I guess
have
like
fun
we're
douching.
still douching. We're still douching out here, folks.
Yeah, and I think, like, even with the vaginal douching, most of the studies were like, if very frequent is when those those percentages increase. So I imagine it's similar for anal douching. Like, it depends how often you're
Maybe
doing
I
it.
shouldn't be doing it when I go to a dinner if I have bad gas.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe I should
Maybe you
decrease
should just
it.
like think about what you've been eating,
And maybe I
which
should
is
be-
like way too much protein, and that's why you always have.
Yo, the gains ain't coming from nowhere there, butts.
Okay,
I will say that this is the end of douching. Is there anything else to be said?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I feel like it's clean. The water came out clean. That's for the people who douche. Yeah, it is kind of an awkward thing. And now I'm like going through everything I just said. And I'm like, do I take it all back? Are people even going to hear this?
What do
No,
you
there's
mean?
no shame in ass.
No,
stuff.
do whatever you want. Honestly, I think you should do it if it's the only way you're gonna feel comfortable. But I think there's also a little work to be done around just like accepting the way bodies are sometimes, and like working towards what can you do outside of douching that can also improve that if that's a big thing for you.
Know what I
And-
was thinking though? In the future, we might have kids, and then it's like they can never listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
Like, what? Imagine knowing that you're.
we're gonna delete all of this. We're locking the podcast.
I actually think that's what I would want to do, because imagine being
no,
a
that's
kid,
so- oh my God,
because
we can't.
you would go through that weird great
Where you're, like, curious.
12 when you're 12 and your brain isn't fully developed, your prefrontal cortex is like half the size it should be.
We're deleting this all
and
right
you
now.
would yeah. No, we're not deleting it right now. When we have a kid,
Just in case we forget.
I won't forget. When we have a kid, when we potentially have a kid who turns 7, Sidenote podcast is gone. Actually, maybe even Aesop Science is gone.
Yeah,
Like,
I
just
think by
wiped
then,
from
that's a long
everything.
time from now.
Exactly. Like I'm just saying, like, I do want to wipe all history of everything I've ever said when my kid turns 7.
I think you have another thing coming.
Wait, what does that mean?
I think it's really hard to wipe everything.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna. Well, no, I know how to do it on this. I
know, but people can download, save, whatever.
No, no
It's
one's
all-
saving this. And please don't save this. If you're that person, like, you don't save this douching up. Save the one about climate change. My kids will like that one. But yeah, no, I know how to wipe it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Isn't it
That's
weird?
terrifying. I've never thought of that, and now I'm like, I never want to speak about anything I wouldn't want to like learn about my parents.
No, but we're gonna delete. But then also, I think that's like the modern parent thing, because kids are definitely learning so much about their parents. Like, now I'm friends with like parents on Instagram, and they like post on Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. You have kids. Like, there's something about having kids and still posting on Instagram. It's like, am I gonna do that?
I don't know.
Are you
don't
gonna
know.
do that?
I don't
Oh, you
use
don't.
Instagram.
Wow. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, enjoy this while it's still in the ether. It'll probably be gone in what, 10 years?
Hopefully in 10 years, this will all be gone. We'll never have to think about it again. Okay, shall we go?
Yeah.
That was your douche sound.
Peace.
Bye.